guess it was a TV movie event. I don't know if it was it wasn't a miniseries, but it was in the early to mid 80s, starring Tom Hanks. I think it was called Monsters and Mazes, or Mazes and Monsters.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, I remember even as a kid thinking, wow, that's propaganda from whoever made this movie to adults to try to get their kids to stop playing Dungeons and Dragons. Right?
Full on. That's
I don't remember much about it except that it was just ridiculous. And they portrayed Tom Hanks as some guy who's playing D&D in a sewer or something. Like, basically he was LARPing, right?
It's LARPing. So I've got it pulled up here. It was actually a Rona Jaffe. Do you remember Rona Jaffe? She was like I think she became some sort of talk show, or she was always a guest star in the 80s. As I think she's very opinionated. And anyway, she wrote a book, and they turned it into a movie. It was a book, and then they turned it into a movie. And it was about she based her 1981 novel on inaccurate newspaper stories about the disappearance of James Dallas Egbert from Michigan State. And the early newspaper accounts really played up the fact that this guy was into Dungeons and Dragons. And so she just took that and went wild and, kind of.
Oh, so she didn't care about D&D. She just said, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll write a book about that.
I mean, she cared about it in the sense that she jumped on the fact that this game can cause psychosis, and of course is based in satanic ritual. But they go in and they LARP, and
was that the first instance of LARPing ever?
I mean, surely not, but
that's actually an interesting question. D&D was invented in the 70s? Mm-hmm. At what point after? I think it was the 70s. Well, I thought it was the 70s. Maybe it was the 60s. But at what point after? And for those of you who don't know anything, I don't know if we've talked about this before on this podcast. But Matt and I learned that we both, I think, read the same article not so long ago, where they talk about how role-playing games, and the inventor of Dungeons and Dragons, Gary Gygax, invented the first new type of tabletop game, and that there had not been a new type for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm just wondering how soon after they invented this role-playing game did people start to LARPing?
So Gary put out the first edition in 1974. Aw. And
year of my birth. 45 years old, D&D.
45 years old, D&D. And wow, so in 5 years, it's probably going to be a big old nerd fest. And then Rona Jaffe, so in 1981 is when she wrote the book. And then 1984, 82-ish, they came out with this movie, this made-for-TV movie, starring a 28-year-old Tom Hanks. But so it took
about 28 already.
I know.
Wow.
He looked like a teen. He was playing a college kid, I guess.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Everyone who does play D&D does worship Satan, and when they tell you that it's not about devil worship, because
they're lying.
They're lying
because they're Satanists.
Everyone worships. Yeah, they have to. Yeah. So, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
The whole satanic panic thing. Why are we talking about this? There was something that made me think about it, and now I can't remember what it was.
I don't know why. I don't know why you were thinking about it either.
I don't know. Well, I mean, there was something that happened right as we started this, and it just made me think of Mazes and Monsters.
Interesting.
And now I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me. But
we were going to discuss.
Brother.
Hello, brother. How are you? Hello.
I'm good. It's a little bit chilly here in the South.
Isn't that weird?
Chilly for us. Yeah. There was a massive storm that came through yesterday, and it was 70s in the 70s yesterday morning, and then by last night it was. Or this morning, it was in the low 30s.
Yeah. It snowed.
Anyway.
It snowed yesterday, Halloween Day, first time in 30 years. So.
Wow. I remember. No, that can't be true.
I think
not in 30 years, because I remember going to Rhonda's for Halloween one year and it's snowing.
Really? It could be. I could be that person that I talked to could be wrong.
It didn't snow much, but it was the first fall, my first fall in Chicago, where I was like, oh God, here it comes. Here comes the hell.
Well, so I have that same feeling, and I have that same sort of, oh God, but Lindsay's always like, no, it doesn't start snowing in October every year. And she's actually right, but it does.
Yeah, not every year.
It doesn't.
But it can. It definitely can, and has, and will again. And that's bad enough.
You are correct. You're right. It snowed in 2014.
Get out of my town.
You did get out. You did get out of your town. You left Chicago.
Oh,
for that reason.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's true.
Because it's not supposed to snow on Halloween.
It's not supposed to snow on Halloween.
It really isn't. I don't care what.
The craziest Chicago Halloween I remember was, I guess, 2015-ish, maybe. Elise was flying in from LA. There was a massive, rain thunderstorm, crazy wind, really cold. But raining, not cold enough to snow. And I guess her flight was obviously really delayed. And so I was just hanging out at home thinking, well, that's that. And didn't figure, we lived on a place called, Matt knows this, but for those of you who don't know and probably don't care, on Logan Boulevard, which has all these old brownstones and stuff. And there was a house down the street that does all these crazy decorations. And anyway, it's a place where kids like to trick or treat. And I didn't expect to see any kids, but there were a brave few, man. And I just gave them heaping handfuls of Reese's peanut butter cups because I mean, costume, no costume, doesn't matter. If you came out in this weather, you're going to get some.
You represented.
So anyway, I represented. Yeah. And then Elise got into town and we all went out and had a drink or something. We threw on a crazy quick costume and just went and had a minute of fun. Yeah.
That's really fun. Did you guys do anything last night costume wise?
We did nothing.
Yeah.
We did nothing. Elise got in kind of on the later side and it was chilly. So we got some nice bubbles of ramen and put on Silence of the Lambs.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. That works.
No costumes, no trick-or-treaters, nothing like that.
Yeah. Well, I also didn't have one Halloween-esque thing yesterday, which is so strange because it has been such a big part of our lives for the last 10, 11 years. But last night I went to see Henry Rollins, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
Henry Rollins and Jared Yates Sexton. Because Lindsay has this new job and she's been working a lot, but it was worth it.
I didn't realize that was one of an event.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I was wondering why you were so into going to see Henry Rollins of all people.
It's so great. There's this. I'll give a plug to Chicago Humanities Festival, where Lindsay is an intern for this fall and has my good friend Brittany is a employee there, and they just do amazing things. It's really endlessly amazing things, and I've really never known the extent of what CHF does. Especially, it's a year-round festival that's called a festival, but the big chunk of it is now, and it is. There's something going on probably right this minute. I mean, it's kind of nonstop for a few weeks, so it's been really exciting.
Stop them.
I don't think they should stop. It's how they keep going. Yeah. It's how they make money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What are we talking about today? Why are we here?
Well, did you start talking about Mazes and Monsters because of the new Game of Thrones news?
No, but
okay.
Hit me with it.
Well, there's new Game of Thrones news.
Boring.
There's actually a little bit. There's like a few things. Number one, the dudes that, whether or not it's true, they got, you know, the showrunners from Game of Thrones. Everybody's theory as to why the last episode was so meh, was because they were hurrying off to do Star Wars, to work on Star Wars, and now they're not doing that.
I hadn't heard that theory.
Oh, yes. That's a big theory. Is that they kind of wanted to just? Now, I don't know that I believe
They just
this.
pulled a Joss Whedon.
Yeah, they just
experience.
like, I'm done. Can we go out and do something else? I mean, that would be so weird. I mean, the last show, Game of Thrones, is weird, but
because even Joss came back for the finales when he pieced out on series. You know, you don't bag on that's dumb. If that's someone's theory, I challenge that.
You challenge.
That's silly.
Well, whatever. For the people who stick to it, the truth is that they are now not going to do Star Wars either.
Yes, that is true. Yeah. That they've officially backed out of their Star Wars. And that, you know, I was thinking about this, and I don't know why I was spending any time thinking about this, but I was. That, you know, I read the article, and it just says very matter-of-factly that cat, quit chewing that, whatever the hell that is. Sorry, that cat is insane. I was reading this article, and they're just saying, you know, very matter-of-factly that they've issued a statement that our commitments to Netflix are just too much, and we can't do both, and we regret it and all. But the reality of the situation behind the scenes must have been far more emotional, right? Yeah. Because you don't just back away from Star Wars, your opportunity to be a part of anything Star Wars without like it just being an agonizing decision to make, right? Yeah. Anyway, again, don't know why I even stopped to spend my energy to care about that, but it did cross my mind. So, but anyway, that's real. They're out of Star Wars. Can't. Well, anyway, I don't know that I actually care that they're out of Star Wars personally. Yeah. I'm looking forward to better Star Wars stories. I'm looking forward to The Mandalorian probably more than I've looked forward to anything Star Wars related in a long time. It's just a story in that awesome universe that has nothing to do with anything else. Yeah. That sounds great. And I'd be more excited about what Rian Johnson's cooking up for the next 3 movies that will have nothing to do with the saga. But I didn't even not love The Last Jedi. I actively didn't like it. And I rewatched it again recently, and I still didn't really care about it. So here's hoping that the next one, which will be out, I guess we'll go see it in December when we're on tour. Yeah. Which is an interesting kind of wrap up, right? Because when we did our first reunion tour. Yes. The first movie, The Force Awakens, came out, and we saw that on tour. And then now we're going to do that, I guess, almost 4 years later. Wow. God. Wild, Buck. Is that weird? That's weird. So we'll go see that. I wish I was jazzed. Maybe it's better that I'm not. I'm not throwing shade. I do like the Terrace Theater, but I would prefer to see it in a megaplex.
Sure, we can do that. I'm not afraid of megaplex.
Just give me those sweet chairs. I like those sweet chairs and the sweet doubly. Sound. Some doubly. Yeah, give me that doubly. Yeah. Anyway, so they're out. Those guys. Right. Game of Thrones. What's the other news?
Right. So David Benioff, sorry, and Dan Weiss, whatever their names. Sorry, they're out.
DB Cooper.
DB Cooper.
Do you know who DB Cooper is?
I think so.
DB Cooper was this mysterious guy who hijacked a plane and then parachuted out of it in the 60s or something.
That's right.
DB Weiss, right? DB Weiss. Yes. And David Benioff.
Benioff, thank you. So anyway, for some reason there were 2 Game of Thrones prequels.
No, 5.
What?
5. There were 5.
What?
Game of Thrones shows. Yes.
Okay.
5. And some of them are still in the in the works as far as we know.
Well, one pilot was filmed, and they're not taking that one, and that was that had women as showrunners, so that's kind of a little bit weird. I don't know why it didn't make the cut, but then this other one, which is based on George R.R. Martin's prequel book. It's the show is going to be called House of the Dragon, and they. You know, it's rumor, but they're thinking that it's going to be based on Fire and Blood, which is a big old book that he wrote about Targaryen history. So that's what they think it's going to be.
And I think that he's rumored to be actually writing for that series.
Yes, if he finishes the next actual book of the Ice and Fire series. Number 6.
Whatever. Put that on hold. Nobody cares about that. Absolutely.
A lot of people care about that.
Write this show because I don't want to watch any more bad dialogue.
I think you're the only person in the world that has said that. Maybe not.
Right. Well, I haven't read the book, so yeah. I'm not champing at the bit.
A lot of people really want him to finish just so that the end of that, that concept is done.
Will be erased.
Is better, is smoothed. So
right.
yeah.
And there's lots of stuff to wrap up in the book that was never even the stone lady or something. Well, no spoilers. Yeah. Anyways, Game of Thrones, #boring. I was a lover. I really, obviously the seasons that, where they just took straight from the book, I was a big fan. But I don't think I was ever a Game of Thrones super fan the way that a lot of people were.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be cool. I really did like it a lot, and I'm certainly very excited every time a new season came out. And Elise was too, and Elise doesn't care about that kind of stuff. So we were into it, but it didn't affect me emotionally the way I was. I was furious at how Battlestar Galactica ended. I was deeply emotionally invested, and that show had big ups and downs throughout all of its seasons. But oh man, there was, or even Dexter. I was furious with Dexter. God, just the stupidest. Or Lost.
Oh, Lost.
I don't know. Lost. It's just so dumb. And
I'm burning. Sorry.
You're burning DVDs of Lost.
I'm burning DVD. Can you hear the flames?
I can still feel the heat.
Lindsay and I are watching the entirety of Seinfeld, start to finish. We're already in season 5, I think. And
wow.
We wake up in the morning, we watch.
There's
9. There's 9 seasons.
Oh,
because
that's not that many. I thought there was going to be like 15 or something.
No, but you and I missed almost every television show in the 90s because we were on the road, we didn't have a TV at home, we weren't trying to be cool, we couldn't afford it, and we were never home. So there was no point. So we missed Seinfeld and Friends and all the 90s things. And so she, Seinfeld is a show that really means a lot to her and to her dad. And so she finally talked me into watching it, and I enjoy it. It's extremely dated, but the actors are, except for Jerry Seinfeld, and it's a running joke that he isn't a good actor, but it is, you do immediately fall in love with the characters. They're, the actors are so good, and it's fun. It's really fun, but apparently that has one of the worst endings of all time. That
really?
That
I didn't know that.
Furious about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Isn't that funny?
Huh.
Who has ended? Breaking Bad. That was a good ending. I was down with that for sure.
Great ending. I was going to ask the same thing. What are shows with examples of really great endings? And that's certainly one of the best.
Yeah.
The Americans. I know you haven't watched The Americans, but that was a beautiful, heartbreaking, like soul crushing, but totally appropriate ending. Really, really nailed it.
Okay,
that's a great show. It's tough at times, but it's like, I'm not going to necessarily put it on the level of Breaking Bad, but in terms of the level of quality of writing never faltered. And it's the core of the show. It's not about spies and shoot 'em ups.
Sure.
It's about a married couple.
Well, we got through the first season.
Impossible situation.
Yeah,
you did.
We did, and we
Okay.
really, really enjoyed it. And then we just,
Okay.
there's just so many dumb things to watch. So
There's too many dumb things to watch. I still haven't checked out Watchmen.
okay.
Which I'm sorry, I just haven't.
Okay.
But I'll need to do that.
We'll
there's
get
too
into that.
much.
Yeah,
There's too much to watch. And how can I be expected to watch all that crap when all I care about is Veronica Mars?
It's just, I know, truly.
Yeah.
There is nothing
so
else.
good.
There is nothing else.
Yeah.
It needs to be. I mean, to the point where I was watching. I was looking up a video actually about this new Game of Thrones show, and it was it was a commercial for one of the new plant-based burgers, and it featured Kristen Bell and her husband.
Dax
Shepard. And I'm assuming they're actual kids, maybe not, but I was just like, oh, Kristen Bell. I'm just so in love. I'm just so. She is the crush. She is the fame crush, and so just anything she does, I just kind of stop and I'll actually watch commercials for her.
I remember today while I was eating lunch, I was watching Veronica Mars, and I remembered that I think the first time I ever was aware of her was Heroes, the show Heroes.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know.
You didn't know that she was on that? I think it was kind of a bigger break for her than Veronica Mars. I think Veronica Mars was ending or had just ended, and it really catapulted her onto more of a, household name stage. How weird is that? Because that show was pretty stupid.
Heroes, I could not take.
It was.
Oh my lord!
It was, but it was huge. I mean, people loved that
so,
show.
Yeah. Well, so is Walking Dead, and that's dumb as hell.
Yeah, but when it was good, it was very good.
Yeah.
Heroes was never good.
No.
I mean, from the beginning. I mean, clearly the guy who created that show, and I don't remember his name, but I remember saying created by whatever his name was at the at the credits of every episode. I just remember thinking, this guy has clearly never read an X-Men comic,
right?
Because these are just X-Men. I mean, get out of what are you? You can't do that. Why isn't Marvel suing you? I don't know. That show sucked. It was a big break for her, I guess. We love her. Mm-hmm. If you don't know who she is, you should find out.
Get to know her.
Get to know her. So anyway,
yeah.
Lots to watch. Too much to watch. Can't watch everything. What else?
What else? We decided last week that we're going to try this sort of segment, a new segment. We'll come up with a better name for it, but it's basically like live like a local or something, where you
are you local?
Are you local? Now that's a good show. We'll talk about that at some point. And so the concept is that you come and present to me something that you've discovered in Atlanta, Georgia, and then I bring something and share with you that I have seen or experienced in Chicago, Illinois.
Yes. Are you local?
So mine is my presentation today is kind of dark. So I don't know whether do we go do dark first and then fun, because I know that yours is fun. Do we do fun first and end on dark? What do you think?
I guess we could end on a higher note.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I went again, like I said, thanks to Chicago Humanities Festival. Thanks to my friend Brittany, I saw Henry Rollins and Jared Yates Sexton last night.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Jared Yates Sexton, he is a writer. He's a writer. He's a professor, actually, he said, but he's also a writer. And recently he wrote a book called The Man They Wanted Me to Be. And Henry Rollins, Henry Rollins seems to basically never sleep. He is everywhere. everywhere, doing all. And apparently, he writes reviews for the New York Times just in his spare time of
reviews of what?
Of books, I guess. He wrote a review for this book that Jared Yates Sexton wrote for the New York Times.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he kind of, it was a book that kind of really spoke to him, and he wrote a review about it. I don't know whether he calls up New York Times and says, hi, this is Henry Rollins, and I would like to review, or maybe he's actually on the staff. I have no idea, but that's how they kind of connected in some way. Because I mean, he was in Australia last year shooting a commercial for a truck or something. So anyway, Henry Rollins is just kind of everywhere. For people who don't know who Henry Rollins is, also get to know him. He is a seminal punk rock band leader of the band Black Flag, amongst many, 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 many other things. An actor and a writer, and I guess he's still best known for Black Flag, because Black Flag was truly one of the most important punk bands of its kind in the generation of the history of punk rock music ever, really.
Yeah.
The concept of DC punk, straight edge, Black Flag, come on. Just go listen to it. It's very easy to find. So that's Henry Rollins, and he went on to do spoken word and writing and acting and all kinds of stuff. And he's pretty great at all of it, from what I can see. Lindsay and I just watched a really cool, super indie movie that he did where he's kind of like this angel of death. It's amazing. So weird.
Okay.
Anyway, so Henry Rollins, and that's why I wanted to go, because of the music connection, but then I didn't know anything about Jared Yates Sexton. That's how they connected, and I guess either they put it together, maybe CHF put this together. I don't think that they had become friends, because Jared was kind of nervous, and he talked about being nervous about being around Henry Rollins, and just kind of wanted to be cool to one of his idols as best he could. It was very funny. What were you going to say?
Where was this? Where were they performing?
They were
or talking.
Mm-hmm. So CHF does a lot of cool things where there's usually an interviewer and an interviewee, or just a conversation. So they have venues all over the city, and this one was in a beautiful church, the First United Methodist Church downtown in Chicago.
Downtown?
I'd never been. Beautiful, right off the blue line, super. It's not nearly as big as I thought it was going to be. Kind of just lovely little Methodist church.
Mm-hmm.
And so they set up a couple of nice, comfortable chairs in the sort of the pulpit area, and Henry and Jared sat there and just kind of talked about toxic masculinity and white male privilege. And they talked a lot about their fathers. And they talked a lot about women, and how women should be, far more in control than they are. They got basically an hour to talk about this stuff, and I really could have stayed for another hour. They were just kind of even getting into some amazing stuff, and it's kind of a sticky, possibly dangerous topic, because Henry's like 58. He's a punk rocker, and he's used to kind of saying things, and yet he's really kind of nerdy and intense.
You say he's used to saying. You mean like when you say he's used to saying things like he's brash and doesn't give a damn.
So you could imagine a world where it became about the two white dudes kind of bitching about being oppressed, not in the way that, like, just being abused by their fathers, and I don't know. I could see a place where it could go wrong, but it was very, just as an older person, you don't necessarily know or care about the language, the proper language, and who knows what was going to come out of their mouths. But it really, the book, which I'm pretty interested to read now is it really is about, this is a thing, this toxic masculinity is something that happens. Our father had it. Lindsay's father has some of it. It's this thing that it's very difficult to escape. Very difficult to escape. And it's...
Can you define toxic masculinity for those who may not have ever heard of it?
Yes. The very stereotypical sort of male, the anger and, racism and homophobia and misogyny, just all these, these things that come from men specifically, and really specifically white men. It comes from insecurity. Everyone knows that, but, and it comes from weakness and this feeling of powerlessness and helplessness. But it's so prevalent, and it's passed down over and over and over and over and over again. Like it's in ads, it's in marketing. People are playing up the fact there are truck commercials that say you're not a man unless you've got a four-wheeler. That kind of stuff. There's apparently there's a yogurt that comes in a black that's full, like just marketed to dudes, and it's the official yogurt of the NFL. It's so true. It's so true. But
it's so dumb.
Well, okay. So to get into it, our father, who we did love very much. He was an only child. He came from an era where his generation were not heroes. His father's generation were heroes. They had gone to World War II. They had fought. They had come back. They were there was respect. They had saved America, right? So Dad's whole generation just is still kind of trying in some ways to figure it out. And I think that so many things were passed down to him, insecurity, certainly homophobia, these things that I think he just had to struggle with. And he was a good guy deep down. He really was. But he had a ton of anger to get through, right? He had a ton of just... You weren't allowed to go talk to people. You certainly weren't allowed to talk to your wife. You couldn't really just confide in anyone. You couldn't show weakness. You can't show weakness. I'm saying you couldn't. I mean, it's still happening, of course. It's happening to people, right. To every generation. Still, it's getting passed on. And it's, as you and I know, it takes a ton of work to try to overcome it, to surpass it, because I grew up and I was called a nerd, and I was called a sissy, and I was called a fag, and I was, just trying to be me, and having the genes that I had, which, I was skinny, and I was nerdy. I wanted to be intelligent. I didn't want to fight that. I didn't see it as a weakness out of the box. But, as soon as you, if you're a boy and you're born, and you get to the point where somebody hands you a toy gun or a blue, a blue pair of pants instead of the pink ones, that's where it begins, right? Like, you're already pushed into this or that. I mean, there's so many things I remember Dad doing, like just weird things, like the time where I found somebody dropped a bunch of quarters, and I turned them into the school office and told him about it. I was so proud, and he was like, "Goody two shoes," And then and then the time that,
God, gross.
Yeah, we had and you and I loved superheroes since we were tiny, and we had all the action figures. We had Superman, Batman, many broken pieces of Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man, and. Right. I wanted a Wonder Woman. I was like, why wouldn't there be a female in this mix? So we didn't have a Wonder Woman action figure for whatever reason. So I found a cutout, like a paper doll. And I cut out Wonder Woman, And then, she came with a little paper doll outfits that you could turn her into Diana Prince. So I cut those out, and then I was like, ooh, cool. I can do this. So I designed some. I was so proud.
You're designing clothes.
I designed
for
my
Diana
own.
Prince.
I designed Diana Prince outfits, and I ran downstairs, and I was so proud of myself. And Dad was like, "Why don't you go outside and play baseball or something?" He was so scared. He was just so scared that I would be sensitive enough. And I'm not. Dad grew up in a lot of ways, and the good news about this guy, this Jared that wrote the book, he did get to a point later in life where he finally was able to talk to his dad after so much damage was done, and after this guy, almost became suicidal, trying to figure out things in society, figure out who he was and where he was headed. But we got to the point where we understood and that it was okay with Dad, but you and I had to do the work, right? He was not going to, Mom helped a ton, but we had to do the work for ourselves, and we had to say, okay, look, that's not good behavior. That's not the way you should act. You shouldn't feel these things about this other person because it's insane, right? Like, so
and it's he was able to get over hurdles that his father put on him, and mother for that matter. Mm-hmm. Our grandfather was a pretty overbearing guy. He never really understood or appreciated what Dad was doing with his life. He was a historical preservationist, and that's too complicated to explain. So you can go look that up. But our grandfather didn't get it. And our dad was well into his 40s before he kind of finally said, I think you might be all right at this stuff. So he never got the acceptance. So he was always telling Matt and me that whatever we wanted to do with our lives, that it was okay, it was good, and he supported it. So he won that battle. But I feel like every generation, like you're going to win, you're going to overcome some stuff. Like we've overcome some stuff. And, if we ever have kids or adopt kids or whatever, we're going to mess them up in other ways and they'll get better than us.
For sure. Like with cyborgs, like cyborg relationships, like android relationships.
Like silence. So he did the best he can. I mean, I think so many people from that generation, that was just totally normal. It feels less normal now, even though we still have kids walking into schools with guns, right, or just people walking down the street with guns, right? It's the same thing. Like, let me prove that I'm a man by,
Well, I mean,
it's alive and well.
It is. So Henry went to Australia to shoot this commercial, and I could almost feel like, because they were full on Henry Rollins fans, and then probably people who didn't know who he was, but I could kind of like feel the vibe. Wait, Henry Rollins went to Australia to shoot a truck commercial, but then he full on turned it around because he was like, I got there, and all of these guys, it was sort of a statement about masculinity. It was some big truck company, and he just it became him interviewing all of these Australian men because the suicide rate is so high because these dudes are just lost. Like they're even more macho than Americans, than us. They're way these farmers, they're just killing themselves. They have to have
because
meetings.
They can't live up to their own sense of inflated masculinity.
Yeah. To that,
because that no one can do that.
Yes, and then they don't talk to their wives, they don't talk to their kids, they don't talk to their parents. They're just it's all weakness. They can't. So they have these meetings now, like farmers, 6 a.m. in the morning, right before they start work. Therapists come as part of the chores. They sit around and they are told, you can tell your son that you love him. You can tell him that it's okay to cry. And it's also okay for you to cry. And they're like, what? because they've never heard that before. And so that, allows them to, in some ways, to kind of not kill themselves. Anyway, so Henry got really wrapped up in that, and that's why he was kind of talking about some of that stuff too. I'll leave with one interesting thing, because again, like we could have listened to them talk about this all night, but apparently scientists are discovering that male human beings are biologically weaker than females. They are, there is muscle fiber there's added strength and bulk and so on and so forth once they are born, but it takes more energy and therefore more time and therefore more, there's more that could go wrong to go from female to male, because everyone starts off as female, and then the X becomes a Y and becomes, that. And so that's another whole thing. Men get more sick. They get sicker more often. And then they suffer from the illness more. Women are just stronger. They are, more tolerant of pain and disease in general, right? Like they talked about the man flu, about how dudes always just complain more about being sick. I certainly do. Oh,
God. Count me in.
Yeah. So the theory is coming in. The theory is coming in that there is this enormous biological thing that that men are trying to overcompensate for. Just this weakness, like from birth, cards are stacked against, and that's a good example of where it could have gone wrong last night, because it is my saying the cards are stacked against them is like, yes, it could be biologically true, but that is absolutely no excuse for toxic masculinity, right? And of course, this all came. This guy started this book because of Trump. We certainly won't get into politics, but just I don't think anyone could disagree that the man that's ruling the country is a very insecure, very, very, very scared human being. There's
hardly anything truly masculine about him.
Right. And it's he's just trying to overcompensate. No matter what your feelings about him, you have to be able to see that as on the outside, you have to be able to see. So it was super fascinating, and I'm so glad that I went. And that's my little my little presentation about Chicago events.
Oh, nice. That sounds, I wish I could have seen that.
Yeah. Me too.
Well, do you want to hear about my thing?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you about my thing. So the other day I was out walking Bernie, and it was raining. So that meant Bernie doesn't like to walk in the rain. So that meant we were walking under the car park under the deck, and I bumped into one of my neighbors, Deanna, and she asked me a really funny question. She was like, "Are you just out of the blue? Are you a session musician?" and no, probably I wouldn't describe myself like that. I don't think I'm really good enough to be that. And anyway, we just got to talking about music, and she mentioned that her daughter's boyfriend plays in a band. The band's called Matteil, and had I ever heard of them? And I said no. They're from Atlanta. She said that they don't really have as large of an audience here, or really in the States. In fact, I guess recently they'd had a tour that they had to cancel because they didn't really sell enough tickets, which that's a bummer. But apparently they do very well in Europe, so that's cool. That's kind of every band's dream. Anyway, me, I don't listen to a lot of new music. It's rare that when I do that I am kind of inspired by it. I just don't seek it out. I don't really think about it that much. But for some reason, I came home and I looked it up, and it turns out Matteil is the name of the singer. So it's just her name. Matteil Brown is her full name, and the band's just called, she's like Cher, I guess. So I looked her up and immediately found her website, which I thought, oh, she's got a nice website. Actually, that's not true. I went to iTunes and I saw that she had videos. I thought, oh, okay, that's pretty cool for a band I've never heard of to have pretty well produced videos. And I turned on a song oh gosh, I should have pulled this up beforehand. And I watched the video and I immediately liked it. The first video I saw was she was dressed in drag. Mm-hmm. So the first video I saw was called Je ne me connais pas. God, my French is wretched. It's in French. So if you go to find the record, Satis Factory, that's 2 words, Satis Factory. I don't know what that means. But I watched this one with her in drag, kind of with some Robert Palmer style dancers, musicians. And I thought, well, that's fun. And then I saw that kind of hooked me enough to watch the next one, a song called Keep the Change. And that's when I was like, wow, this person is totally awesome. And it took me a minute to think, like, what? She reminds me of so many different things. And it took me a minute to put my finger on what it was. But it's like if Nico Case, PJ Harvey, The Waitresses, and Velvet Underground had a musical love child, that would be Matteil. Yeah, she cites her own influences as Screamin' Jay Hawkins and Mark Bolan and the Staple Singers and Jack White and Rolling Stones, which I can definitely hear all those things too.
For sure.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's so rare that I hear something and I'm immediately, and maybe it was by virtue of seeing some really well-produced, really cool videos, which, as you know, you and I are, we have a band, right? And we've never had a cool video or any videos, except for we've made some lyric videos, but we've never done a real video. And just to see someone, I don't know what kind of budget she has, but they look really great. It looks like she keeps them pretty simple. It's really just her in some funky scenario, but they're just so well done. So I was immediately impressed. So I started, doing some research, and I found out that she used to be a graphic designer. She kind of got into music. She'd wanted to be a musician as a career her whole life, but like lots of people, hadn't been able to make it her career or hadn't chosen to make it her career. And then a few years ago, she had an insane allergic reaction to some prescription drug she was taking, and her skin became addicted to steroid creams.
What?
So I know, it's a super weird story. And so she had to. This is real. And she apparently was really kind of traumatic, and it wasn't just like, oh, my skin's breaking out. It was brutal. I think probably painful, and her skin had to withdraw from these prescription, whatever she was taking, for whatever reason she was taking it. And she would spend hours at a time taking like oatmeal baths on her skin. Yikes. Anyway, so because of that, she spent a lot of time not going out and started focusing on music. And then sometime like a year or two, however long later, she put out her first record, and then this new record, which just came out this summer, I think. And anyway, yeah, I bumped into my neighbor Deanna again. I said, "Hey, I listened to your to that band and really loved it," and mentioned how the videos were great. And she said that as far as she knew, the videos are almost all Matteil. Like she's super involved, heavily involved in all the creative part of that. So, I think she's playing in Atlanta in February. So I'm definitely going to check that out.
So the part that I had not heard in that story was that that your neighbor had asked whether you were a session musician. Is there an implication that Matteil might need a drummer?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know. It does sound like she's somewhat of a Trent Reznor type of character. I don't know that she plays all the instruments. I think she has a band. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I want to say that Deanna just had heard that about me, so she was just kind of making conversation. I don't think she was seeing if I was available necessarily, but. Would I play in Matteil's band? 100%.
100%.
Yeah, I would definitely.
Us up.
Call me up, Matteil. You're cool. And I can play drums okay.
You can play drums.
I could hang in that band.
Yeah.
I could hang in that band.
You can hang in
and I have
bands.
a cool 1963 Rogers kit, so it would like have a vibe.
You're not afraid to wear outfits. You're not afraid to be filmed or photographed or dance.
It's true. Anyway, so this was just a fun local thing that I have not been involved in the Atlanta music scene.
Yeah.
Since I moved here, when I moved to Chicago, I involved myself heavily, at least in one sector of the Chicago music scene. You know, one of the only people that you and I knew, you knew Lindsay, and who doesn't know anybody in the music scene, clearly. But we both knew our good friend Kevin O'Donnell, and we just cold called him up out of the blue and said, "Hey, can we be friends?" And it was really because of him that I met everyone that I knew.
Sure.
Still know. I can't remember them. I still know them.
Do you remember why we went to Kevin first? We had that super awkward lunch with Andrew Bird.
With Andrew Bird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Super awkward.
So you're saying that Kevin O'Donnell was our second choice?
No, he wasn't a second choice. It was that Andrew was like, you remember Kevin O'Donnell? Well, you guys are in. We were telling him that we were into theater and music, and said, well, that's your guy. You know, Kevin is still here. He's a king of this. And so then, yes, I mean, but I don't know whether you knew. I had played with Bill with Kevin just a couple of shows.
Oh yeah.
So did you know him at all, really?
Kevin?
Yeah.
I did. I guess not super well. I definitely had spoken to him at Andrew Bird's shows in the past. Yeah. The last one I remember talking to him at was Andrew was playing, what was that place out in Mount Pleasant? Village Underground or something? Right. Is that what it was called?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was just Kevin and Andrew, and it was totally awesome.
It was.
So I remember talking to Kevin then, but it's not like we knew each other super well.
Right. Or Andrew. But they were both extremely kind. Your point, I'm sorry.
But Andrew would always come to our shows.
Yeah.
He would always, anytime we played Shubas, he used to come.
No,
and we would see him. He would come backstage. So we arguably knew Andrew better than Kevin.
Yeah.
But Andrew's, for anyone out there listening who's never met Andrew Bird, he's a pretty shy, soft-spoken fellow, and I think he left Chicago not long after we moved there.
Yeah, not too far.
Either to New York or out into the country or all over the place.
But he is supportive and wonderful, and really, really nice dude. He's a super nice dude. And one of the nicest things, as I stepped on your story, is that he sent us to our scene, our Chicago scene, which is really great.
Oh yeah, I mean, if it weren't for Kevin, I don't think I'd have friends in Chicago. And Kevin's the total exact opposite of Andrew. You know, outspoken, loud, funny.
Yeah.
Not that Andrew's not funny. Andrew can be funny, but Kevin, he's a hoot. He's a hoot of a fella, and just the sweetest guy. So anyway, but I like Sons of Susan, kind of the what kind of jazz band would you call that? Hot jazz, or it's kind of Dixielandish, Dixieland kind of band that I played in. Matt Kandersky, gosh, forgetting the name of his band. Sorry, Matt. Oh no. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. You're gonna have to edit this out. What was it called? The Grizzled. The Grizzled. You played with us.
I know.
Grit and the Double Knit.
Grit and the Double Knit, right? Yeah.
God, I hope that you never hear this, or I hope that my Matt edits that out. So Grit and the Double Knit, Sons of Susan, so many different bands, and I was playing all the time in Chicago. I would go out. It would not be uncommon for me to be playing multiple times a week, or at least a month. And in Atlanta, I've just never done that. So anyway, it's remarkable to stumble across not only a band just music in general for me here that's local, but also that's really, really good.
Right.
So that's my story.
I love that story. And I watched those videos that you sent excitedly, and she really is great. So I hope that she does get on a tour where that people want to go, because I'll go check her out. I'll bring Kevin O'Donnell to see her.
Totally. She's straight up like a hideout band. Like Hideout is waiting for her to come and rock that place. Go Matteil, if you ever hear this, I hope you played the Hideout and you enjoyed it. I'm sure you won't hear this for another 10 years. You'll already play the Hideout and you're playing the Metro by now.
Yeah. Yep. She's surpassed. Great. I love that story. I love this concept. I like this. I like this whole segment because
I don't know that we're always going to be able to find local stuff because, that's, we'd have to be constantly out there like trying to dig stuff up. But it'll be nice when we do.
Yes. I think we've got a few segments sort of in place that we're going to give a shot in the next few weeks or so. Some fun ones that I really want to try. So but I think as soon as we do keep an eye out on our prospective cities and find things that we really like, that we should write them down and then save them for this segment, which we'll come up with a better name for. Oh no, I'm sorry, it is a perfect. That is a perfect name for it. Great. Yes.
Maybe what we need to decide is we'll just pick some randos and decide if we think they're local or not.
That's true.
Are you cool enough to be local?
That's true.
Yeah.
Points to anybody who knows what we're referencing there. You can leave them at facebook.com/BivBros.
In the form of a GIF or a GIF.
A GIF. You can, if you know what we're talking about, leave that. No words, just that. Yeah. And fun, and sad, and also healing, and all those things.
All of those things.
Oh. Well, all right. I guess we're saying goodbye. As always, this show is brought to you by Bivens Brothers Creative. If you need a website, if you have been wronged by your web designer, if you have a site that you would like to become more accessible to screen readers and accessible to the world in general, then come say how. Come say howdy to us.
Say how.
Come say howdy to us, because we like it. We like it.
We like to build those things.
We're working on things. Yeah, we are. Yeah. We are. So please come talk to us. And
all right.
Until next week, brother, I sure do love you.
I love you too, brother.
We will have a
good time. Come on in and have a good old time. Have a fun time with two bros.